and the daily newsletter. Yesterday, a lot of voting again, 10,179 votes cast on this question. Do war crimes committed by Russia in Bucha, Ukraine, demand a NATO military response? 70% said what? What do you think? If you regularly listen to the program and vote on the survey questions, you know the answer. It's always the hawkish answer that wins. Yesterday was no exception. 70.07% said yes, this demands a direct NATO response. There are a lot of stories today about an emphasis now by Russia on eastern Ukraine, having been repelled from Kyiv. You know what else is in the news all over the place? And I went today with a pretty interesting BBC story. Who are the Putin daughters? Apparently, he has two daughters. They've now been sanctioned by the U.S. They're on double secret probation along with everybody else. Maria and Katerina. One is 36, the other is 35. The daughter's the product of a marriage that ended long ago between Putin and Lyudmila. I'm not sure how to say her name. TC, she was a flight attendant.
That's right.
She was a stewardess back in the day
for
Aeroflot.
Was this his first marriage? Because doesn't he have young children that live in Switzerland?
With
or
the
has she come
gymnast?
back? Right.
With the gymnast.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen her. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
The daughters are interesting. And, if this were the United States, we'd know everything about them, and we'd know about the grandchildren, if there are any. Apparently there are. The eldest, Maria, studied biology at St. Petersburg University and medicine at Moscow State University. And then I guess the Billy Carter of the family is Katerina.
Why is that the Billy Carter?
She's the rock and roll dancer.
Oh, stop.
Which one do you think the American media would have more fun with if Putin were the president of the United States? Oh, one more thing.
Sounds like they're both pretty interesting.
When Katerina was married, the wedding was held at an exclusive ski resort near St. Petersburg. Workers there said the couple arrived on a sleigh drawn by 3 white horses. I know you and Joey had only 2.
And how many did you have? Because that's what one does. That is what one does.
Just one. Right. Just one. Putin also does have grandchildren, but we really don't know how many he has or which of the daughters had them.
How do you sanction these women? I don't kind of understand how the whole sanction thing works.
I honestly saw one analysis at the AP today talking about the sanctions that have been levied so far, but nothing with the level of detail that I want to know. I imagine
we got to do a segment.
They can't do banking business in the United States. Go figure.
Okay.
Today's survey question: should the Biden administration have again extended the pause on student loan payments and interest accrual? The Wall Street Journal has a lead editorial on this today saying, hey, if you're not going to end the forbearance now, then when are you going to do so? Quote, if they aren't now, they never will be. The unemployment rate for a bachelor's degree holder in March was just 2%. Many borrowers have built a financial cushion from pandemic stimulus payments in the past 2-year freeze on loan payments. Some have used the savings, which have averaged $400 a month, to pay off higher interest debt or invest in stocks. And of course, I think a fair question to ask is, what of the people who met their obligation? Is this student loan issue headed in a direction where that debt will be canceled? Because I think there will be a hue and cry from people who didn't have their debt canceled and paid off their student loan obligations. This mix between policy and pandemic, evident in another way today in the news, immigration, where Title 42, which has suspended the ability of asylum seekers to gain entrance into the United States under the guise that they would spread COVID. May 23rd, that changes. And from the Texas Tribune today, I have the story of Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott of Texas, saying that he will now place state troopers in riot gear to meet migrants at the border and bus them straight to the steps of the U.S. Capitol in Washington. So I've talked here on POTUS, and I've spoken on CNN as well about this coming mass migration issue, as if the administration needs another headache with inflation and the gas prices and Ukraine and the pandemic coming back. I'll talk about that in a moment. But just imagine what that will look like. And I think Ron DeSantis, not to be outdone, is now saying, well, he'll do the same thing and he'll send his to Delaware. Meanwhile,
Come on.
Yeah.
Did he say that?
He did say, I think he said that.
Oh, DeSantis.
Meanwhile, Secretary Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, says there's not a double standard. We have this from CBS News today in the newsletter. There's not a double standard in allowing Ukrainian refugees into the U.S. while thousands of migrants from Latin America are also waiting at the border. Right. Like, are we still going to allow the Ukrainians to bypass this blockade at a time when others are being thwarted? It is just, it's a hell of a conundrum. It is a hell of a conundrum, and it continues to be problematic for the administration on the border and seemingly is going to get worse. Here's an interesting story, and I went with Oliver Darcy and I think Brian Stelter from CNN on this. It's news about the news. News about the news, and it's on my mind because I saw Jen Psaki respond to a question yesterday from Peter Doocy of Fox. She was rather abrupt. I thought he asked a reasonable question, and the question was one of, you're giving phones to people who come into the country as a means of tracking them. Why can't they just ditch them? I wish I had the audio for you. I should have had the audio for you. And her response was to say, well, do you have data about people discarding phones? It would seem to me if I come to the United States and I'm given a free phone, I'm going to know they're using this to try and track my whereabouts, and I am going to ditch it. But the interesting story about Jen Psaki that I went with from Stelter and Darcy today at CNN is that NBC, listen to this, TC, NBC News journalists are troubled by and have expressed dismay to network executives about MSNBC's intention to hire White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki when she exits the Biden administration. In other words, there's this tension at MSNBC about welcoming her. I would have thought, I mean, say what you will about Jen Psaki. I think she's very credible and a great at what she does, meaning the spoken word. But apparently there's tension within NBC, MSNBC about her coming aboard.
I wonder, that actually really surprises me because I'm trying to think of like Kayleigh McEnany joining Fox, and no dispute, seemed like
they were happy to have her.
Right. I don't see now. Okay, I think I'm giving away a bias. I don't see her as. I see her as a perfect fit for MSNBC. Am I wrong?
So apparently the tension lies in the NBC folks wanting to be perceived as news purists and straight shooters.
Well, then they need to take the entire prime time off of MSNBC. That's ridiculous.
You remember Noah Oppenheim?
The intellectual devotional?
Yeah. Noah Oppenheim was he was like a weekly guest.
Yeah.
He was a weekly guest on this program in a different incarnation in Morning Drive.
100 years ago.
Right. He wrote a couple of books and we loved having him as a guest. Today, he is the NBC News president.
So is he? Boy.
And he had to have a conference call yesterday with the talent and reaffirmed the distinction between NBC and MSNBC. But apparently the gist of this is that the NBC people don't like the perception of them being so politicized. And they think that Jen Psaki coming aboard on the heels of Simone Sanders having come aboard, it's going to somehow like paint them with a broad brush.
I think, but Michael, come on. The entire primetime lineup of MSNBC is on the left. And if NBC doesn't like that, then they need to revamp the whole lineup.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Where it gets really interesting are NBC talent who are also on MSNBC, Chuck Todd, Andrea Mitchell, and Haley Jackson. Right?
Yes.
Because I mean, clearly they're trying to, to please two masters. But I think that's the issue. It's like NBC perceives themselves as serious news journalists, not opinion people.
Okay.
And now here comes Jen Psaki, and she's going to bolster this perception that we're all opinionated.
Okay, I say she still makes it over there.
The deal apparently is not done. I mean, apparently this all was released before she had dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And I know nothing other than what I read in the trades, but apparently CNN wanted her as well. So we'll see. We will see what happens. the more interesting story, perhaps, about the media, cable world, comes from Yahoo, and it's a study by a couple of academics. Fox News viewers who were paid to watch CNN for 30 days eventually became more skeptical and less likely to buy into fake news, according to this new study. So these were people who were incentivized to stay away from Fox, even though Fox was their network of choice, and instead watched CNN, and they became more distrustful of President Trump, because this was a study done in September of 2020. So think fall campaign of 2020. One of the academics responsible for this study is going to be on this program tomorrow, David Brookman. And by the way, I have to say this, what about the reverse?
That is exactly what I was thinking.
What if you take CNN viewers and have them watch only Fox, right? For 30 days.
It's that classic President Obama quote.
Right. Go ahead. You say it.
No, you can say it.
He said if he only watched Fox, he'd hate himself.
If I only watched Fox News, I'd hate me too.
I read not only the Yahoo story that is posted at Smerconish.com and in today's newsletter, but I also read the study. And if I understood the study correctly, I was kind of bummed by this. These people, of course, had to chart their viewing. They were only watching Monday through Friday. I was hoping
that's
that
the problem.
I was hoping that I factored into this and that somehow they were watching my program as well.
That's amazing.
Okay, from one Fox story to another. TC, you've got the other from NPR.
All right. So this is obviously the most important Fox story. So headline, the fox responsible for biting people at the U.S. Capitol tests positive for rabies. I was following this story all day yesterday. There was a fox that had been biting people and they caught it. And then I was so sad because they euthanized it.
9 times though, but he bit people.
Okay, it was a she.
She bit people.
And what the first news that came out was that they euthanized it and then they found her kits. And I thought she was just a mama fox protecting her babies and was completely horrified that they euthanized it. Why couldn't they just move everybody somewhere else? But now it comes out that she has rabies, and that kind of is a different situation.
I remember, first of all, because we have a lot of fox in our area.
Oh, I have Mr. Fox in my backyard. I posted on Instagram 2 days ago.
And every once in a while, you'll just see one of them out in broad daylight, and you're like, stay away. Something's not right here. I see fox on the way into the studio on many a morning. But anytime I hear about rabies, all I can remember is my mother growing up and telling me, like, stay away. We had a woods near our house. Stay away from a raccoon or stay away from a fox. Stay away, because if you get bit, there's a needle this big and it goes right into your stomach.
Oh my God.
Seriously. I have some
but I
14-inch needle.
But
it's a 14-inch needle.
I have that recollection too. Is the whole stomach shot legit?
Why
would both of us think that?
Is 14 inches legit? You're the daughter of 2 doctors. You should know better than I.
Okay, hopefully they'll text me.
Ladies and gentlemen, is COVID back? Is COVID back? COVID, I have to say, is so much in my rear view mirror. COVID to me is just the ass pain of wearing a mask when you're at the Philadelphia International Airport waiting 5 hours for your bag to come off a plane that never left the ground. But the reason that I bring it up, and I've got the New York Times coverage at Smerconish.com today, is that Saturday night was the annual Gridiron Dinner. The Gridiron Dinner, 600 people attended, is a precursor to the White House Correspondent Association dinner. I think that it actually stems from a dinner that originated in Philadelphia, but that's beside the point. Gina Raimondo, the Commerce Secretary, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, Congress members Adam Schiff and Joaquin Castro, among those at the event who now have COVID. By Wednesday afternoon, another high-level attendee, Jamal Simmons, comms director for Kamala Harris, revealed that he too tested positive. That came one day after he shook President Barack Obama's hand at the White House at the Obamacare party, and who was there but President Joe Biden. So the stories, and the Times is just one of them. Politico has a lot of coverage on this as well. A lot of stories talking about how people are buzzing in D.C., like, who did you sit next to? Who did you shake hands with? Blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of concern about the president. As Politico says, Biden is twice boosted, but let's face it, he's no spring chicken and is demographically in a high-risk group. Even so, the 79-year-old has been out there mingling with the maskless masses at a bunch of events amid the D.C. spike. For example, on Wednesday, the National Conference of North America's Building Trades Union, a postal signing event. Tuesday, he was at the Obamacare commemoration. Monday, a South Lawn gathering in which he posed for photos. The tension within the White House is one of, they know people are back to work and kids are back to school. They want to project, wellness and an economy that, again, is vibrant. So he doesn't want to be back to being masked up, but they also need to protect his health. So that is a big issue, the return of COVID. If I'm on Biden, let me also say something about Trump, something that I've been watching and wondering and speaking about here on POTUS. He's got $110 million in campaign cash at a time when his party is trying to retake control of the Congress. And so Republicans want him to spend the dough. Through his Save America Super PAC in support of Republicans, he's doled out through February 28 only $205,000. How much of the $110 million do you think Donald Trump is going to throw into the Republican coffers between now and the midterm elections? I say not much. There's an interesting story from Mediaite that made the newsletter as well. It's about journalist and author Annie Applebaum being dismissive of a question that was put to her yesterday pertaining to Hunter Biden's laptop and the outcome that it might have had of the 2020 election. She then said to a young journalist, I think a young conservative journalist, this is totally irrelevant. She was completely dismissive of the subject. I thought it was a legitimate subject to have raised for her. Like, what do you think now? Same sort of thing that those 50 or so Intel experts, I think, legitimately should be asked about. So I recommend you read that story. Pennsylvania politics, not a day goes by that there isn't something interesting that is happening relative to the Pennsylvania Senate race. Politico has a really great story. And I need you to look at my Facebook page as well, because the leading contender on the Democratic side of the aisle is the current lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. His name is John Fetterman. He is a progressive cut from the cloth of Bernie Sanders. He's a very unique individual. The second place finisher, according to the data, the polls, is Connor Lamb, who is, unlike Fetterman, a much more, what would you say, TC, traditional looking candidate, central casting candidate.
Yeah, Fetterman is unusual. He's just absolutely enormous. He's a huge guy.
6'8".
Yeah, and he doesn't dress like a typical politician. So he's always
biker
wearing
shorts,
cargo shorts, and a top. And you saw him during COVID with that bright yellow neck thing. He just marches to the beat of his own drum.
So here's what's interesting. Read the Politico story, and for what I'm about to describe, take a look at my Facebook page. So Connor Lamb trailing John Fetterman. A PAC drops a commercial supportive of Connor Lamb, raising questions about Fetterman and noting that he is a self-described Democratic socialist. Apparently, yesterday, Elizabeth Warren does an interview. This has caused ripple effects among the politicos on the Democratic side of the aisle, because the fear is, hey, if you go too hard on Fetterman, then you're going to wound him for the general election. And this seat could determine who controls the entire Senate. So ad comes out. You can watch it on my Facebook page, where Connor Lamb's PAC notes that Fetterman is a self-described socialist. Elizabeth Warren gets asked about it yesterday. Quote, here's what she says. I saw the PAC ad that is currently running in Pennsylvania. It is wrong and it is disgusting. If Connor Lamb wants to stand up as a Democrat, he needs to disavow that ad today. Well, the big ad that will be run about Fetterman, if not now, believe me, Dave McCormick will run it in the fall, is about the time when he grabbed his shotgun because he heard gunfire in his neighborhood. Mayor of a small Western Pennsylvania town intercedes when he sees a jogger run by, thinking the jogger is associated with the gunfire, pulls his shotgun on the man, who happens to be black and unarmed, and not involved in anything untoward. Like, if you don't think the Republicans are going to run that ad about Fetterman, you're crazy. So what am I saying? I'm saying you need to vet the guy now. Otherwise, he's going to be your candidate as the polls suggest today, and then it'll be too late. He's also someone, and there's an ABC News story on the site about this. He's one of several candidates out there running, and many of them are Republican. Many of them are Republican who are just refusing to debate. And we have had that conversation as well. Final thing I'll mention, Christine Brennan from USA Today, the sports columnist who says, no matter what you think of Tiger Woods, by the way, is anybody negative on Tiger now? I thought we were all like pro-Tiger.
Oh no, we got, I
still
wait until tomorrow. Social media report.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, people have opinions.
No matter what you think of Tiger Woods, his greatest achievement will be playing in this Masters. Fingers crossed. It's raining in Georgia. I've lost track of the schedule for, I know what time he was supposed to tee off, but I really don't know how it's all going down, but I sure hope he plays. And I agree with Christine Brennan. This just to play and to walk will be his greatest achievement ever. Those are the headlines from Smerconish.com. Make sure you are registered for the newsletter. Truly, the feedback is over the top. People love looking at the headlines by 7:30 a.m. Philly time, and I love bringing them to you.